Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter, Minnesota. It is Monday, November 25th, 2024. At 7 p.m. we are called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody's received a copy of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved as distributed. Next up, approval of the minutes. The minutes appear on pages 5 through 8 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We have time on our agenda for visitors. Are there any visitors who'd like to address the council on any agenda item? Seeing none, we also have time for general visitor comments if there's any visitor who'd like to address the council on any matter whatsoever. Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins with the memo on page 9 of the packet and concludes with the resolution that is on page 42 of the packet, 42 through 43. The consent agenda includes the following employee appointments: Matt Ullman as fire chief, Emma Armitage as recreation intern, Jessica Skraybeck as fitness instructor at the wages listed within the packet. The following board and commission appointments shall be made: Keith Stelter to the Parks and Rec Board for a partial term ending December 31st, 2024 and continuing for the next term of 25 through 27. Mark Bachman to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2025. We declare the following as surplus and authorize the staff to dispose of: the fire department, a 1969 snorkel fire truck with attached equipment; the community center and library, a hard surface floor scrubber, an advanced reel cleaner, a Black & Decker corded drill. We approve the following licenses: temporary gambling licenses for the Church of St. Peter on the dates and locations listed within the packet; the attached revised tree planting lists for right-of-way and parks and green spaces, as well as the schedule of disbursements for November 7th through November 20th, 2024. Is there any discussion of any items on the consent agenda? Brad?
Madam Mayor, I'd like just like to point out, since we have so many visitors tonight, we're doing some boards and commission appointments that the city regularly has positions available on their boards and commissions. So if any residents of St. Peter would be interested, they can go to our city website or check with our staff to see what boards or commissions might be available.
It's always great to put in a plug for boards and commissions. Further discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution approving the consent agenda is on pages 42 through 43 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson? Aye. Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ram?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We have no items of unfinished business tonight, and so we will move on to new business. The first item of new business is the adoption of a resolution approving water rates and water fund budget. So we have two separate resolutions under this memo, and Sally's here to talk to us about that.
Mayor Noel and City Council, we are here asking for the approval of water rates, starting two increases, one on January 1st, 2025, another on January 1st, 2026. Those increases will be reflected in the bills due March 15th of each year, and also our water fund budgets for 2025 and 2026. The memo begins on page 44 of the packet and ends on page 50 of the packet. The water fund, as you know, provides the operation of cities' wells, aquifers, water treatment facilities, 2 elevated towers, and 2 ground storage reservoirs. And they distribute water through the system that's 54 miles of pipe throughout the city. This is a 2-year budget proposal for 25 and 26. Just so you know, state statute does not require budgets for environmental services, but we think it's best practice to approve budgets and give ourselves and staff the agreed work direction for each fund. The 2025 and 2026 budget changes, operating expenses are similar to what the council has approved in the last budget cycle. The 2025 proposed budget is a 5.4% increase from the 2024 budget and 9.3 from the projected 2024 year-end numbers. We are coming in favorable in 2024 right now as I'm projecting it out. Right now we have numbers through October, but we have some spending that does come in at year-end, just getting caught up in those types of things. But right now we are projecting favorable to 2024 budget. The 2026 is an 11.6% increase from the 2025 budget. Projected years of budget have a number of assumptions. The 2025 and 2026 revenue does not include any additional new customers or consumptions beyond 2024. This means that generally if there's growth in the system as houses come on, it will help, it'll be a favorable impact to the budget. But as you know, we don't know when homes will be completed and it's hard to forecast and plan of what people will spend. There are no transfers from wastewater to water in 2025 and 2026. We've been doing this the last 3-4 years because wastewater's debt was paid off. That was always the plan, to help shore up water reserves. We're at the point now where wastewater is going to be, and when we get into that budget, we'll discuss it, has some big capital projects coming along, so we will have to spend that money in wastewater. So we won't be doing that transfer anymore. Wages were projected to increase 3% for 2025 and 2026. Another big contributing factor to our expenses is our health insurance that we provide for employees. There was a 6% increase for 2025 from the healthcare, and we're projecting a 10% increase for 2026. Budget revenues are projected to have an approximately 52 cent per 1,000 gallons used increase in 2025, and a $1.24 per base charge. Again, those are beginning on January 1st of 2025 of the budget cycle. And then in 2026, it'll be a 56 cent per 1,000 gallons used and a $1.34 base charge each month. The revenue projected to increase for 2025 is $263,361 with this rate increase, and $283,114 in 2026. Again, there is no interfund transfer. In 2024, there was $550,000, so we're trying to increase rates to help offset, not 100%, but we're trying to offset that not happening and get our reserves where we need to be. Other revenues collected in 2025 and 2026 will remain flat for 2024. Please note that this water is very weather dependent. So one of the impacts for 2024, it was a dry, cool summer, and revenues right now are projected to be below target of $298,193. So it can fluctuate depending upon what happens with weather. Again, residential irrigation meters continue to be installed on new construction. These meters will continue to have no monthly base rate, but they do include a slightly higher cost per 1,000 gallons used, but it does not have the wastewater on it, so it's just a water usage on that, versus your home meter is whatever gallons you use as water, it's considered the same gallons for wastewater. The water fund does transfer 6.5% of its sales to the general fund, and that began in 2023, and we will continue for this budget cycle. The financial goal has been set to have a water fund unrestricted reserve of 4 months of operating expenses, or $674,985 for 25 and $753,217 for 2026. The unrestricted cash reserve is identified in 2 categories: bond payment and unrestricted cash. There is earmarked funding for membranes to cover large costs of membrane replacements for reverse osmosis. By the end of 2026, the projected cash balance is $62,000 and $4. Again, no transfer from wastewater to water in 25 and 26. The 2025 budget anticipates capital costs to be funded with reserves in the amount of $979,000, of which $360,000 is for the membrane accrual, and the remaining balance from cash reserves. 2026 capital costs are $521,000. Again, all cash reserves. There is a 10-year capital plan found in the packet with a breakout of funding for years 25 and 26. Current debt issuances, are listed on pages 45 and 46. Most of the 5 of the 6-year debt issuances will be done at the end of 2029, and the largest debt payment right now is for the water treatment facility, and that will retire at the end of 2029. The remaining debt issuance will be in 2024, issued in 2024, will retire in 2039. Wages and benefits are accrued and where people work between water and wastewater. It's a shared team, so they do that with their timesheets, and benefits are allocated accordingly. Again, we will come back in front of you for any purchases over $25,000. So approving the budget does not mean that we're going to go and spend on large capital or purchases. We'll come back and have those presented to you for final approval. The total fund balance for the water fund in 2023 was $186,717. The projected year-end balance at the end of 2024 is $173,584. And at 2025 will be $159,569, and again, $62,004 at the end of 2026. Again, we are trying to get to a 4-year operating expense balance, which would be $674,985 at the end of 2025, and that increases to $753,217 at the end of 2026. Again, as debt gets paid off in after 26 and 27, 28. As you can see, we do have a budget detail in there, and we are getting close to those reserve targets by the end of 2030. Again, we continue, there's a large relationship between water and wastewater, but we are asking you to approve the water fund budget or resolution on page 59. For 2025, it's $351,091, and for 2026, it's $4,298,390. Questions?
Sally? Brad?
Not a question for Sally, just multiple comments on this. So what we're looking at is a 7.5% increase over the next 2 years, each year. That is substantial. I did look back over several years, all the way back to the 2019 budget. There were no increases from 2019 through 2022, and then the last 2 budget years, at the council's insistence, we did increase rates 1% each year. So basically, a lot of this is driven by the fact that there has not been any inflationary cost of living or just even small adjustments made between the last increase and now. It goes to show that, it's easier to do 1% every year than 10% every 5 years. So we're behind, we need to catch up. I will be supporting the rate increase. I am concerned, though, about the projections of 7.5% again into 2027 and 2028. While we're not approving that budget right now, I'm not in favor of looking at that. Part of that can be alleviated by looking at using financing options. So I am going to vote against the budget. I will be voting in favor of the rate increase, but I will be voting against this budget because I don't think it works in favor of reducing potential costs in the future as far as the projected rate increases beyond this year. I think we need to do a better job of looking into the future. We'll get into this more in wastewater, but there was a big miss 2 years ago when we were setting these budgets and the anticipations of wastewater costs. Everything was great. Staff was thinking, we're flush with cash, and now we're not. So As I said, we're putting ourselves back to where we should be, probably further ahead than we should be had we been doing regular consistent rate increases. That predates this council because newest one. But as I say, I'm in favor of the rate increases because we're in a position that we need to do it. But I don't like the way the budget is structured because I think it sets us up for even larger rate increases beyond this budget cycle.
Oh, Carrie.
So at the workshop, the last workshop, we discussed the budget, and the question was asked, I believe it was by Councilmember Pettis, about the 2026 planned capital purchases, and if it made sense to do financing there. And the answer I remember was, no, not really. Todd or Sally, can you explain that again?
It's to your choice of how you want to do it. Right now, we're looking at using cash reserves as we have in the past, and just because of the life of of what we're buying and some of the other ones, we aren't looking at financing for that and putting it out for the next.
Yeah, I guess it was
5
my
years.
understanding from the workshop that like the amounts or what we would be purchasing wouldn't necessarily be a good option or the best option for financing.
I think there are a number of challenges that you have, any of which you could choose to make a different decision, whether you're using cash or issuing debt. You do have challenges related to the issuance of debt and that it costs to issue debt, not just from an interest perspective, but the issuance cost. And so there's a number, there's not a magic number, but there's a number at which the cost to provide for the issuance means that you've paid a lot for a relatively small impact. That's a decision that the council could change at that time. Again, this is a budget and we try and move forward based on the plan. If we have additional dollars that come in, as we apply for additional dollars, and this is even more true in wastewater related to PFA, there are opportunities there that we can apply for. Whether we get them or not, we won't know until we get closer to that timeline. I think the challenge that you face is that staff has recommended in previous years that you reduce your use of wastewater funds to subsidize the water fund. This does that. You could certainly go back to transferring more dollars from wastewater to water, but as you know, you have substantial capital increases that are going to come in front of you related to wastewater as well. If I had to compare funds, the largest expenses that you're going to see in the near term, defined as less than 5 years, is going to be within the wastewater fund, not the water fund. I think as you look at these debt issuances, we continue to see an evolving environment in how you're rated by Standard & Poor's. And that's something that the methodology that's behind that you don't get to control. But continuing to have a plan where you are making adjustments that provide opportunity for those credit reviewers to see that you're making changes to apply extra cash within those funds helps within those ratings. But I don't want to double talk you. I mean, the reality is that the issuance environment, so what are interest rates out there, have more impact than you're going to have on these issues. In their world, these are very small sums of money, but they do review that and look at those issues as they provide information to those folks that might invest in you. Another way to say that is buying your debt. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to make the point that there was discussion about financing versus using cash for capital expenses and what made the most sense, and I just wanted to revisit that here.
Okay, Ben.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Brad said. Brad, you said that you weren't in favor of approving a 27, 28, 29 budget, correct?
Well, we're not approving that. What I'm saying is that what staff is currently projecting is 7.5%. And so my concern is alleviating, as we basically did a couple years ago with the 23-24, was finding a way to make sure we didn't put a burden on further budgets. With staff projecting a 7.5% in 27-28, what can we do before we get to that point with that budget is to alleviate the process there, so.
Gotcha. So we're approving a 25-26 budget now.
25-26, and the methodology that I think we're using to do 25-26 is putting additional pressure on 27-28.
Gotcha.
Additional questions? Daryl?
I just want to remind everybody that we've been using the water and wastewater fund to shore up our street projects, to buy down our cost and buy down the assessments on our street projects. We have not been assessing for water main, nor have we been assessing for sewer main. Those are covered by the enterprise funds, I believe. If we are going to do that, which I fully support, and I fully support doing street work, and we have plans laid out for street work, this spreads those costs across other customers within the city that do not pay property taxes. So this is a way to take money citywide to buy down the cost of street work by reducing potential assessments on front footages of lots to construct streets, and I believe we do need to construct some of those streets, and we do have some utilities, water and sewer needs within those streets. So I do support the rate increase, and I do support this methodology in doing that.
Justin?
Nobody's in favor of any substantial rate increases. I mean, that's the last thing we want to put forward. I am glad that we are being transparent and we're not taking funds from the wastewater fund in order to move it over. And we're actually being clear on which funds are covering which and allowing us to have that revenue there.
Any other comments? We will continue this discussion after tonight and after this vote, moving forward, I'm sure.
And so, just to be clear, Madam Mayor, on that, as the council is aware, your process is that you do a midterm review of this. So you'll be talking about these budgets, even though there's an approved budget for '26. You'll be talking about what your performance has been and where you might go in the future about this time next year. That's part of your process. You don't have to do a 2-year budget. If you want to improve a 1-year budget, you can certainly do that. We've done 2-year budgets for a few cycles now. It seems to have been a benefit because it does allow us to project a little bit further and think a little bit harder about capital improvements and where we want to go. I also believe that it's important for your ratepayers and that it gives them some additional surety for more than 6 or 8 or 10 months at a time. That doesn't mean that something catastrophic might not happen and changes have to be made, but I think you're doing your best, your due diligence in moving things forward, and a 2-year budget helps in that, at least to some extent.
Thanks. If there is no further discussion, the resolution adopting the 25-26 water fund budget is on page 59 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Nay.
Mayor Noel?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Next up, a resolution adopting water rates. Sally or Todd, anything to add?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. That resolution appears on pages 60 through 61 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to adoption of a resolution approving wastewater rates and wastewater fund budget for 25-26.
Mayor Noel and City Council. Same, again, we're here to approve the wastewater rates and fund budget for 25 and 26. Budget detail begins on page 66 of the packet through 73, including a 10-year capital improvement plan. Wastewater fund provides operation of the city's wastewater system, lift stations, treatment facilities, laboratory testing, disposal of biosolids, and reporting to MPCA and the discharge of treated water into the Mississippi, I wish, Minnesota River. And the city's commitments to minimize our overall environmental impact through quality treatment and very low impact on effluent water and discharge into the Minnesota River. Again, we are proposing a 2-year budget. We've done this for the last 4 cycles. State statute, again, does not require budgets to be approved. But again, we think it's best practice and gives staff a working direction for the next 2 years. Changes to the 2025 and 2026. Operating expenses are similar to what's been approved in prior years. 2025 operating expenses are 5.3% above the 2024 budget, driven mainly by wages and benefits, fuel costs, and utility costs. Again, wastewater uses a lot of city utilities, so we are one of the bigger users of utility costs there. 2026 budget is a 4.1% above the 2025 operating budget. Capital projects for 2025 and 2026, there's 14.6 million for 2025. 14 million of that is for the wastewater treatment plant and rehabbing the biosolid work that's done in equipment. It's 20 years old, 22 years old to be exact, and we're needing to upgrade that equipment and replace some failing equipment there. And then 2.1 million in 2026, and that's 1.1 million of that is for building refurbishing that will be going on. Rate increases proposed for January 1st of 2025 and 2026 is approximately 60 cents base charge per month and approximately 46 cents per 1,000 gallons for wastewater used. This translates into about into 94,978 increase over 24 projected year end, and for 2026, 156,167. Water usage again is projected flat to 2022 levels, and water sales again can be weather dependent, depending upon what's going on and if people have irrigation meters or not. Full rate recommendation, the table is on page 64 of the packet. Again, wastewater will transfer 6.5% of their sales, gross sales to the general fund. That percentage has been in place. And then wastewater will not be transferring any funds to water in this budget cycle. Most of the wastewater debt has been retired. There is one that was issued in 2019, and that has about 1,290,000. That last payment is in 2043. And then we have some of the sewer and revenue refunding funds for the street projects, Pine Street, Cullen, and Klein. As stated earlier, we are looking at issuing a bond issuance of 14 million for capital for the biosolid equipment replacement in 2025 and 1.1 million in 2026 for building rehab. That would be bond issuance. There are no personnel adds for this year and for either year, and no new programs or substantial changes in operations planned. Again, living on the river, if the legislature would change or make some rules that we have to follow, we will have to come in compliance, but right now we're not foreseeing anything in this budget cycle. The recommended reserve goal for wastewater at the end of 2026 is 615,110, which equates to about a 4-month average of operating expenses. The wastewater fund is projected to have an unrestricted cash balance of 691,219 at the end of 26. Again, we are working towards that, and we are asking approval of the wastewater budget resolution on page 74, which includes 2025 expenditures of $3,668,531 and capital expenditures of $14,668,200, and then for 2026 expenditures of $4,299,984 and capital expenditures of $2,154,900.
Sally, questions for Sally? Brad?
Can you come up here, please? I'm gonna go easier on you because of the audience. So a couple of years ago, when we went over this budget, we were swimming in cash, everything was duckies and bunnies. The only reason why we did a 1% rate increase is because the council insisted on it. In fact, I reviewed the notes and staff made sure people knew it was the council, because it even said at the council's direction, we're raising rates 1%. We had $600,000 in capital expenses in 2025, 2 years ago. Now it's 14 million. Kind of a big difference? What happened?
We finished our facility plan, and so that is really a event that we do with our engineering services to identify needs for the future. And so even though we developed a 5 and 10-year plan, that information was out there for our budget considerations. We just didn't take any action to raise rates at that time because we didn't know the impact, and we still don't know the impact exactly where we're going to be when we complete the end of our capital improvements.
So I will say that, I think part of it was earlier this year, when you brought us a facility plan, you said, well, it's because we have a 20-year facility, our facility's 20 years old, and we should expect it. And 2 years ago, I would hope that maybe there might have been a little bit more anticipation that there might be some needs that would need to be upgraded, so we could have anticipated this. We rely on staff to set a lot of our rates. Even if even a couple of years ago, if we could have bumped up rates a little bit more, it would have prepared us more for this. Once again, we haven't raised rates, at least back to 2019, rates haven't been increased. Not sure, when was the last time rates were increased? Todd, do you care?
Off the top of my head. I'd have
Okay,
to go
yeah,
back and look.
so, once again, it gets down to is we just have to basically consistently look at gradual rate increases versus these large bumps at one time. I think, honestly, a poor job of setting rates has happened in the past. I'm not putting that on staff. I know prior direction from councils was basically don't do it until you absolutely have to, which is what has led to a lot of these dramatic rate increases. But I will say 2 years ago, we were also working under the assumption that our budget for the next 5 years out was going to be fairly limited except for some water expenditures. I am in favor of the budget. I am in favor of the rate increases. Actually, the rate increases dating back to 2019 are less than inflationary. So at this point, I would say we move forward with it. I would once again advise staff, do all you can to not just look at this 2 years, but to look at the budgets beyond, to look at your impact now as to what it's setting us up going forward. And as well as, looking not just at this, but I know with our electrical system is looking further out, even though you don't know exactly what you need now, even your best estimate or best guess as to what might be needed in the future. I attend the public works meetings, you're talking about breakers that might need to be replaced and starting to look at those into the budget to help, avoid these large surprise. Essentially, this was a big surprise to us earlier this year, and just finding ways to kind of eliminate the surprises is what we need to look at going forward.
Additional questions or further discussion?
For the sake of our audience who has not been at our workshops, can either one of you, maybe Pete, more aptly explain, what is this $14 million going towards?
That would be biosolids improvements. And so you have a Class A wastewater facility, and what that means is that your permit requirements, you have to treat to a certain level. Our biosolids is a exceptional quality biosolids, which gives us less regulation when we go to disposal. And so the goal behind that is to maintain that level of environmental impact within our community and within the surrounding area. Right now, we're evaluating what we're trying to accomplish in two methods. One would be a $20 million improvement, which would take us to a drying level, which would have an impact on PFAS treatment in the future. We just recently completed the testing requirements with the MPCA, and we do not have any PFAS in our wastewater or our water stream at this time. And so what we're now trying to do is look at the options below that. You guys have authorized a construction manager at risk, a CMAR, for us to operate. We'll be getting that on board here in December. And at that time, we'll evaluate what methods of treatment we can do in the future here within the next year or so in order to treat our biosolids to the capacity that we have and currently meet the regulations.
If I can jump in with a less Public Works Director explanation. We have a plant that's over 20 years old, and the equipment in it is like driving a 22-year-old car. lots of us drive 22-year-old cars, but they don't meet the efficiency. They don't protect the environment like a modern car. They don't get the gas mileage like they used to. And for us, the big issue is that they don't treat wastewater or the stuff that comes out of that wastewater in the way that it needs to be treated, not only to meet the law, but to meet the environmental goals that we have. One of the biggest issues that we have within our community towards protecting the environment is how do we treat that waste? And so this is a significant issue in that. And so once in a while, you got to fix the brakes, you got to put new tires on the car, you got to do those types of things. And unfortunately, this is a very expensive kind of car. And so $14 million buys new brakes and new transmission and those things that are necessary to continue to meet those environmental goals and keep us running down the road and treating our waste just right.
And for our very attentive audience here, the treatment of wastewater is the final stop before it gets to the river.
Carrie.
So, in terms of bonding, at what point would we submit a bonding request?
So we will submit a bonding request in every cycle where they offer the opportunities to submit a bonding request. I would tell you that from my perspective, there is opportunity for that to happen. However, the most significant opportunity for financing that we have is through the PFA or for the Public Facilities Authority. And they provide funding based on state bond issuances, and they loan us money. Sometimes they give us a little bit of grant, but usually they loan us money. And it's targeted towards ensuring that our wastewater is X% of that area median income. And so they might give us a better interest rate if we have a lower area median income, and maybe not as good interest rate, so a higher interest rate when we have a higher area median income. So they target those dollars to ensure that there is at least some level of equity throughout the state of Minnesota and what folks pay towards maintaining the environment and treating wastewater. So that would be our number one kind of stop.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that the legislature hasn't added funding in a long time, and the needs for infrastructure, wastewater plants, water plants, is just going up. And so it is, I mean, it gets to be competitive as those resources are limited.
Yeah, it's very, very competitive. I think one of the advantages that we have is that you as a council, as a community, have a great reputation for meeting the requirements of treating this waste appropriately. And so I think that they look favorably upon that, MPCA does, and therefore PFA does as well. I think, there are other options. You could do nothing and let all the sewage run into the river, and then the state would jump in and try and save you. But that isn't what councils traditionally here have done. You've really tried to ensure that you are doing things right as it relates to environmental impact and treatment of waste. And that's the process you've been in now for over 25 years. But again, specifically to this plant and the capital improvements, it's tires and brakes and changing the oil and all those kind of things that are really important in keeping that car moving down the road. It's not the building itself. The building is fine. It's the stuff that's inside that's in a very hazardous, challenging environment. Yeah, corrosive, all of those things for sure. So anyway.
Further questions, discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution adopting the 25-26 wastewater fund budget is on page 74 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rampt,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Any discussion before our next resolution? The resolution adopting wastewater rates is on pages 75 through 76 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rampt.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you.
you,
Our
guys.
Good job.
next item of new business is the adoption of a resolution reestablishing a mayor's task force on childcare.
Mayor members, this is something that the council's talked about quite often, and this is really what you might consider the number 2 Child Care Task Force. You originally had one about 10 years ago that did some great work. We tried to establish this not that long ago and had some challenges related to membership and COVID and other issues. This is my effort and my recommendation to you based on discussions with the mayor related to ensuring that we gather folks that are really smart in this area that can do a couple of things. First of all, identify challenges within our community for the provision of child care, whether it's the cost, the amount, the number of spaces that are available, all of those things. And then that task force would provide a report back, and the goals are outlined within the body of the memo. But generally, it goes like this. We've identified a problem. Here's some potential solutions, and the city then can make decisions what type of solutions make sense for you to implement. Some of these things are things that the city can own or could own and help with. Some of the items that will come up, you just don't have any control over, and that's okay. But maybe we know someone who does or can help in that area. And so then we have an opportunity to inform them and solicit their assistance to try and promote additional affordable child care within our community. This is a big issue. Child care is economic development in a number of different ways. It provides opportunity for workers to work within our businesses, and for many families, operating a child care business is their business. It's a small business and really important. The goal here again is to appoint some members, and this provides latitude for me to bring other folks to the gathering, to the party. I would anticipate there'll be 3 to 5 meetings on this, each meeting taking maybe an hour to an hour and a half from this group. I've talked with all of these folks over the last couple of months about participation, and council has discussed this, and Councilmember Johnson said that she would participate, and our goal will be to have a structured or facilitated discussion, identifying challenges, and then doing those 3 or 4 things that I talked about. The resolution establishes this task force, and I hope brings specific relief or highlights the need for these type of services within our community and the impact that the city can have on helping with not all of those, but maybe some of them. And as the council's told staff on many occasions, we do what we can to help people when we can. And so this is an opportunity potentially to do that. Again, Madam Mayor, the resolution is included in your packet. That provides for the task force itself, provides for the mission of the task force and membership.
Discussion, Carrie.
I'm very excited to serve on this task force. I was on the board of a child care center before I came on the council. I have 2 kids of my own and faced some challenges with access to child care as well as cost. I think the work also really aligns with the work that I do on the Regional Economic Development Alliance. The one thing with this list, I think it's going to be really easy for all of us, especially the folks that run the child care centers, the family child care providers, to identify the challenges. The solutions is going to be a lot more difficult. And so as we work on identifying those challenges, which I think will be come pretty quickly, I think we might want to expand to businesses and other, like outside of this group, where we can kind of think more from a community perspective about what's right for St. Peter in addressing this challenge, because every community is so different. The issue is very complex, so Daryl and I were just at the coalition conference this last week, and there was a panel presentation on child care case studies from across greater Minnesota. Every one of those communities is facing a little bit of a different challenge. They really only were addressing capacity issues. They did not have any solutions for addressing workforce or cost. And so it's a very dynamic issue. I'm really glad that we're doing this. And so I think, we can do work as a task force, but we're going to have to expand into the community, because it's not going to be, we're not going to have like one size fits all solution for our community. We're going to need a lot of support in that realm. So, but I'm very excited. It starts with having these conversations. So I look forward to serving on the task force.
Brad.
I'll second. I look forward to Councilmember Johnson serving on the task force as well.
Brad, you've done a lot of great work in this area, so you've definitely done your tour for sure.
But yeah, I think she'll be a great addition to this, with not only her background on a board, but with Rita and the coalition in the coalition, Greater Minnesota Cities. And people understand this is not going to solve everything, but there should be the ideas to come forth to help make access easier. It may not help with workforce creation, but it may help with licensing. We've had previous things where we've tried to make licensing easier for home childcare, or make EDA loans more available for home childcare providers. So it's not necessarily the big ideas, but necessarily small ideas can add up. So I'm excited to see this task force come together again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. So.
Further questions or discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution establishing a 2024 Child Care Task Force is on pages 79 and 80 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving execution of an updated mutual aid agreement.
Mayor, members, this is included in your packet starting on page 81, and this is something that you've done before. However, there's a few items that have changed within this mutual aid agreement. And if you had a chance to look through your packet, you'll see some of those, but let me highlight a couple. First of all, as we provide assistance or assistance is provided to us, the bills start rolling after 12 hours, not 48 hours, as was in the previous agreement. This is important in a number of different ways. Certainly, it's important that it's articulated, but also this relates to some changes that we've seen and implications that we've seen related to natural disasters in FEMA. So I think that's important for you to know and understand. Also, the length and the renewal terms for this. The initial agreement here is 5 years, but it renews automatically unless we provide notice. In the past, it was actionable each time, and so this keeps it rolling. Please be assured that this is something that we'll watch on a regular basis, but we will count on some of our county friends and the county emergency management teams to continue to move this forward, and we have discussions about this as we have tabletops and other exercises that relate to it. Again, this is really important so that we know how we're engaging with others, and as we look for assistance, they engage with us and we understand what the ground rules are. When we come together, we are our strongest, and this provides that opportunity so that it's done with clarity and understanding of how that works. Also, this is part of what we see FEMA looking for should there be a natural disaster like the tornado or flooding that's occurred. And so FEMA looks for these types of agreements to provide for reimbursement for local units of government, not just cities, not just counties, but other local units of government, townships and others as we work together. And as is mentioned in the last bullet point, St. Peter really understands the importance of mutual aid in providing for partners. We sure do. Madam Mayor, there's not a direct cost to doing this at this point, but should we be engaged or seek assistance, that's when costs and the outline of this agreement provides for how those costs would be paid. There's a copy of the agreement within your packet, and then a resolution at the end of that. Madam Mayor, I think, if I remember right, the resolution is on page 87, if I remember correctly.
You are correct. Any questions for Todd? Well, you did so well explaining it. The resolution approving execution of an updated mutual aid agreement with Blue Earth, Nicollet, and LeSueur County and cities located within those counties is on page 87. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution accepting 2022 Broadway Avenue and Sunrise Drive intersection improvements, and Pete is here to talk to us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, back in 2022, we began the Broadway Avenue and Sunrise Drive intersection roundabout. That work has been completed. Dirt Merchant out of Mankato, Minnesota was hired to complete that project, and they have completed all the warranty work. As you realize, we had some concrete that had to be corrected this last summer and a couple of storm sewer issues to resolve there, and those have been corrected to our satisfaction. What we're asking you tonight is to approve final payment and to just summarize what we did for the fiscal impact. Local road improvement grant funds were 60% of the overall project. And so we're very happy with that. Our total project was 2.102091. So we had 2.1 million on that. And what we're asking is that you approve the resolution on page 90.
Any questions for Pete? Hearing nothing, Todd.
I just want to add another thing. Pete is exactly right. We started construction on this project in 2022, but planning for this occurred approximately 5 years before that, and request for federal funding and other things. So these projects take a little bit to develop, just like we talked about with water and wastewater. As we're looking for resources, you have to be a little bit ahead of the game, and so these are great projects as we can move forward, and we're very fortunate to get those LRIP dollars in cooperation with the county.
Thanks. Any further discussion? The resolution authorizing final payment for the 22 Broadway Avenue and Sunrise Drive intersection improvements is on page 90. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Now we'll talk about the adoption of a resolution accepting Old Minnesota Avenue and St. Julian Street roundabout.
Again, we did have Dirt Merchant bid this project. You authorized the project to be completed. We did come in about $3,000 less than the bid amount. Funding for the project was federal grant again, 64% of the overall project. And this one had a little more utility work underneath it because of the age of what we were doing there and the future plans for our growth area in St. Peter here. Total project, as I mentioned, $1.792 million. Has been, warranty work has been completed on this project. They really went together on both. We had the same issue on both of the projects with some storm sewer. Those were lined and corrected, and we're happy to report that everything looks good. And we're asking that you approve the resolution on page 93, and we will make final payment.
All right. Questions for Pete? Oh, let's go with Ben.
One quick question.
Yes.
So the two projects, there was, about $300,000 difference between the two projects. However, the holdback between the two was flipped. It was different. So the first project that was $300,000 more, the final payment was about $50,000. What's the reason for the difference between the two?
The final payment or the
Yep,
total cost of the
final
project?
The final payment.
In the 2022 project, as the project got reached achievement, we were less likely to hold money back on the final payment because more had been accomplished. So by law, we have to release that money only to cover the expenses for the uncorrected issues. And now, if this project wouldn't have gotten completed in this year, we probably would have had another payment that come down the line, and it would have been similar in that. But due to timing, Dirt Merchant was able to correct both issues, and that's why.
Perfect.
So the issues you talked about that needed corrected, those were corrected under, those are warranty issues,
Warranty,
correct?
yes, yep.
So we didn't pay extra for those to be corrected?
Nope, we did not.
So for the people who voice frustration of why are we tearing something up and redoing it and paying for it,
Yep,
we were not paying for it.
that's correct. Yep. And the other issue with the 2022 project at Sunrise and Broadway was we did have county participation on one of the legs, and so that extended to the west up County Road 5 or up Broadway, and that's why the difference in the overall cost of the project.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, the resolution authorizing final payment for the Old Minnesota Avenue and St. Julian Street roundabout improvements is on page 93. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution authorizing purchase and installation of a wastewater lift station pump.
Madam Mayor and City Council, at your main lift station down there on Union Street, we are going through some issues now, again, similar to what you're experiencing at your wastewater plant, where we're starting to look at pump replacements. The original pumps are still there. They have been taken out about every 4 to 5 years and rebuilt and then reinstalled. Your utility or water resources superintendent has done some extensive research on this and is recommending that we not take the low bid for this project, but yet we look at over the life cycle cost of this project, because we feel that due to the nature of how maintenance is performed now and the companies that we hire to do this maintenance, this gives us more flexibility and can be done at a cheaper cost. Over the 20 years, we anticipate about a 50-year savings over the life cycle. And most of that's related to the cost to pull the pumps and where the pumps can be maintained. I believe that we've got a decent product here in both of the two low bidders. And so our recommendation is that we go with Minnesota Pump Works, and that we approve the resolution on page 96, and that we'll begin working on some routine replacements when we have pump failures.
Carrie?
I remember hearing a lot about lift stations during the flooding, the historic flooding we had in the summer. And just it's interesting just with our geography that we may need less lift stations than other communities that don't have gravity as a support. But you called this our main lift station, so how important is it to our community to have that one functioning?
This pumps all of the wastewater to the wastewater treatment plant. So we collect everything at that site. As you guys are aware, we originally built that lift station in 1960. We have since refurbished that and added VFD pumps, which means that they operate on a different frequency with electricity. And so we need that in order to make our wastewater plant run the most efficient. And so these improvements here will allow for some of those improvements to be maintained at a high level.
Thank you.
And we do have quite a few less lift stations in most communities.
Right.
We really have about 3 lift stations in St. Peter and 1 at Kasota. For a community our size, that's a very low number. As you are aware, during our expansion to the west, we made the conscientious effort to put in deeper sewers at a higher cost in order to prevent from having electrical pumping situations in the future with lift stations.
Thank you.
Brad?
So I am in favor of this. I'll just say it seems like we're flushing a lot of money down the drain.
We don't pay extra for that.
Other questions or discussion? All right, hearing nothing further, a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of a new Sulzer pump at the main lift station is on page 96 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rampt,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thanks, Pete. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving Traverse Green subdivision number 3 final plat. And Ben is here to talk to us about that.
All right, thank you, Mayor Noel and members of the council. This has to do with the Traverse Green subdivision number 3 final plat. And just a little background. So over the past 2 decades, the city of St. Peter has constructed 3 new single-family dwelling developments. So in the early 2000s, it was Nicollet Meadows and Washington Terrace, 77 lots and 87 lots, both of which are full. In 2016, the city developed Traverse Green, and that was 59 original lots, which is now 63, and that is almost full. So that's really good news. There is 19 vacant lots left, and 18 of those are reserved. So just to break it down a little bit, there's 14 medium lots reserved and 4 small lots reserved, and then there's just 1 large lot available, which is the most southeasterly lot. All 3 of these neighborhoods were designed on the Building Better Neighborhoods design concept. They did help to bring in new tax base, increase public utility users, it increased population, added school-aged children to local schools, and offered new housing options for the entire community. It's best practice to have about 2 to 3 years worth of inventory on hand as far as lots go. The last 2 years, we did 11 new single-family homes, and this year we're at 25 or 30 units, and we're not quite done yet. So currently, the city is experiencing a shortage of available lots in this particular lot range, not only in Traverse Green, but throughout the city. The city does own 46 acres of land that is showing up on the screen, and does include the school property along Nicollet Avenue that was recently purchased. So with that 46 acres, the city worked with a development corporation to originally create some concept plans. Out of those multiple concept plans came the option of extending Essler Street to the north about 2,000 feet, and that would open up anywhere from 40 to 46 lots. About a year ago, the city reached out to Miller Homes to see if we could find a partner, and we did. It's been a good partnership so far, and Miller Homes committed last spring to constructing 26 of the new homes in this subdivision that's being proposed, and they also paid 20% of the engineering costs that was part of the development agreement to become a partner with us. So attached is the actual plat. And so what a plat is essentially it's our method of subdividing land. And this particular plat subdivides this land into 42 lots, which can be built on. Mostly they're above 10,000 square feet and less than 16,000 square feet in size. It also creates 2 outlots and then establishes 3 roads. So it extends Cullen Street, it adds Benson Street, and then it extends Clark Street as well. So with that, it would be city staff and the planning commission's recommendation to approve this final plat, which was based off of the approved preliminary plat from back in May.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion? Brad?
I'm really excited about this. I've been saying for several years, we need larger lots. It's just a demand that we were missing here. Interestingly enough, now all of our smaller lots have been bought up. But I think this is giving some people something they were looking for, and I think it's going to do really well, so.
Anything else? Hearing nothing. Traverse Green Subdivision Number 3 Final Plat. For the City of St. Peter. The resolution is on page 103 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to the adoption of a resolution approving Traverse Green Subdivision Number 3 lot prices and design standards. We have 2 resolutions with this. And Ben?
Sure.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Noel. Yeah, 2 action items off of this memo here, and now that the final plat is approved, we have officially established lots, and so we need to add prices to those lots. So attached, there is a map and a spreadsheet that shows the lot sizes and the proposed lot prices. We did review this at the workshop, and the staff, including the city engineer, public works, and community development director, we tried to lay out these sizes so that they'd be desirable for the community, new home builders, and prospective purchasers. And we also tried to make sure that the lot prices were also reciprocating where they are located, how desirable they'll be, and based on the development costs that are shown on the next page. So there was $2.7 million worth of development costs. There's 10 items in there, and those are what make up the $2.7 million. We're just trying to recoup those costs. And so far, with our partner Miller Homes, they have reserved 26 of the 42 lots. So we have 16 lots that are available for us as a city to market. We'd start marketing those after the beginning of the year and into the spring. So for this, the council in August did approve the Cullen Street project, which started the actual road and utility work. So that was just recently completed. The underground work was completed here just a few weeks ago. and then we'll let that sit over the winter to settle, and then in the spring, we'll pick that back up, and that's when the curb and gutter sidewalks and pavement will come in. And then we can see some houses start coming in and maybe spring, summer next year. So with that, there are two things to look at here. One would be the lot prices. So there's correlating lots and blocks, addresses, square footages of lots, and then broken out by the lot prices. So that would be the first resolution that we're looking to approve.
Any questions about that first resolution? Josh?
Just to clarify, these lot prices include any potential assessments, right? So for folks who are looking to purchase one of these lots and build a home on it, all the utilities are already gonna be installed. This is the only price that they're gonna have to pay. They're not gonna pay more.
Exactly, yep. And then there was some assessments, past assessments, from projects that were close up on Clark Street and County Road 20, that are also included in this. And so it's just one price for all the assessments, for sure, yep.
Additional questions?
Members, if I could, the reason that we ask you to do it in this way is so that as you move forward with the third phase of this, which is the marketing and sales rules, which will come to you in the new year, we have numbers that are fixed so that staff and your city attorney can do the transaction, complete the sale without additional action on the part of the council.
All right. Seeing no other raised hands, the resolution establishing the sale price of residential lots within Traverse Green subdivision number 3 is on pages 108 through 109 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All those, we need a roll call. Thank you, Keisha.
Councilmember Shrestrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
All right, the resolution is approved. We're gonna move on to, resolution establishing architectural design and home standards for Traverse Green subdivision number 3.
Thank you, Mayor Noel, and just a note that there was a updated resolution that was passed out. So there was 14 standards, now there's 16 standards. So in an effort to help protect property values and promote a consistent and aesthetically pleasing neighborhood, this new neighborhood in the city, a list of 16 standards was compiled by the city to help direct home construction within this new Traverse Green neighborhood. The standards were sent to our partner and also reviewed at a recent workshop. To note, the ones that were revised from the workshop were number 5. We make sure to add hip roofs. We did some revisions to number 7 to address siding color. We made sure that on 10 that attached garages were required. And then 14 and 15 were added, and that addresses the shop home house idea that has come about recently. And then number 16, there is some kind of a catch-all where the city administrator, the community development director, and the building official, as we review these, we do look for all these different things, but we do have some, on a specific case-by-case basis, we may approve some minor variances or deviations from this, just things that don't always get brought up. There's always something new that we haven't thought about, so. With that, it would be staff's recommendation to approve the next resolution.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions? Brad?
So number 1, you did make a revision to 3, which I appreciate, which is the split lot, basically home size. Previously, it was just a flat,
Yep.
what's above ground. You took into account split levels home, ramblers, and 2-story. And I appreciate I'm in favor of increasing the square footage as you did for the single floor slab homes. I do have, I think, the biggest thing, part of it is we want homes of greater value. The biggest thing that drives value on the home is square footage. I think we're getting too deep into the weeds when we start dictating that they have to have a facade roof gable. You do allow the hipped roofs, but the fact that one of the if they have a gabled roof, one has to be a facade facing. The other thing is, I still have an issue with the 2 different exterior siding materials. I drove through my neighborhood, and the houses in my neighborhood, they're all larger. They have decent value to them, but I'd say at least 1 out of every 3 homes would not be able to be built with these siding standards, because many of them, like my own, only have one. I have steel siding top to bottom. I don't have any other facade fixtures, but my steel siding went on in 2018. You know, it was something that Schmidt Siding used as a model. And there are people who may not want the facade. I'm someone who said, if someone has a brick facade, but then it ends right at the front of the house, and you can see the sides, it's not appealing thing to me. That's just my taste. So I'm not saying we ban that. I'm just saying people have different tastes. I would be against having two different exterior siding materials. The other issue I had was the exterior, essentially the limiting of the exterior siding colors to earth tones, but the city may approve other visually appealing siding colors. Who gets to dictate what's visually appealing? The reason why I ask that is, you know, we'll use my neighborhood as an example. We have light blues, we have dark blues, we have greens. Mine is a very dark gray. Would any of these be permitted in this neighborhood? And so I guess what I'm getting at is I was in favor of these lots because I wanted, I have a lot over 10,000 square feet. You know, one of the things I was looking for is let people have larger lots over 10,000 square feet. Let them build the house that they like. Now, do we want to have minimums on size? Absolutely. Because we don't want someone building a tiny house on a large lot. But I do think allowing a little variation in what people want for their house versus, you know, saying you either have to have a hipped roof or a facade gable. Dictating what colors, essentially leaving the colors up to somebody. And I think you've got great judgment in color, Ben, but you know, just leaving it up to somebody in community development to decide whether they want a light blue house this week or whether that dark blue house isn't something they're interested in. And you know, and just the exterior wall. I think we're getting into the development side of things when we're not developers. I guess that's the way I'm looking at this. Is I don't have a problem setting minimum sizes. Even minimum size of the garage, but just when we get into siding color and the design of the house, the exterior of the house, I just think it's going beyond what the city should be doing. And it cuts down on, honestly, it cuts down on variety. I mean, part of the appeal of lots of neighborhoods is just not all the houses look the same. And I think that's a big thing. So I wouldn't be in favor of this. I wouldn't mind taking it back to a workshop to discuss this more, because just as laid out, I think we're doing too much design work, and in 20 years from now, this neighborhood might look really old with all these houses that look the same.
Carrie?
Have we had any pushback from developers that have seen or reviewed the design standards, or are we too soon to really show Miller Homes this, for instance?
No, Miller Homes has approved this, and they're the ones that are doing 26 of the 32 lots. So this will be for the 16 lots that, I mean, the same standards will be for Miller Homes, which they're fine with. The 16 lots that are left that the city will market, we'll use this as well to promote the neighborhood.
I'm okay with the design standards. It's pretty similar to what I've seen in other newer neighborhoods. I do like to see variety as well, and I get that, but I think I'm okay with the design standards as listed, especially if we sought feedback from developers who really know the customers probably better than we do. So,
Josh?
So I think I'm in Brad's camp. I would prefer this one back to a workshop and probably will vote no on it. I think we're overstepping in the design of a home. I think one of the biggest attractions to having larger lots is people get to build sort of whatever home they want to build or whatever dream home they have. And one of our sort of directions that we wanted to go as a council was getting people from their starter homes in St. Peter into their second homes that likely will be ones that they more fully design. I think this is far too restrictive of design metrics for a city to be imposing on a community. As I mentioned at the workshop, if this was an HOA community and people were voluntarily electing to go into an HOA, I think this is very appropriate. But for the city to enforce this on its own, I think that's overstepping.
Are you making a motion to table? Definitely.
I would love to talk about this at a workshop again before we come back on.
Then I would recommend you make a motion to table, definitely. And if there's a second, we'll vote on it.
I will make a motion to table definitely.
I'll second that.
We'll do a
It's a
roll.
voice vote.
We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion is, it is a no on the motion. So we will move back to discussion if there is any discussion on this. Hearing none, we will move forward with a vote on the resolution, the revised resolution that was distributed, establishing architectural design and home standards for Traverse Green subdivision number 3.
So I would like to make a motion to approve this revised copy of the design standards.
I would have one further question, actually. Ben, who does decide what's an acceptable color?
It would be a combination of the city administrator, myself, and the building official.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Nay.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
No.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to move on to reports. There is no report from your mayor at this time. Are there any council members who'd like to make reports?
I would.
Thank you, Daryl.
Like Carrie stated before, I will let her talk also. We did attend the CGMC conference up in Alexandria last week. Good conference, day and a half. One of the things I'd like to talk about is actually the daycare information that was presented from the panel, City of Laverne, City of Warren, City of Wilmer. And some of the challenges that they have, just like Carrie had said, they focus mainly on the strict sticks and bricks, I guess, building these. They did receive a couple questions from the audience I thought was very interesting. The one gentleman basically asked, okay, great presentation on getting the building built. What are you doing to reduce the actual cost of daycare? And they were talking $16,000 on average for infant daycare in Minnesota right now for a year. And the lady from Laverne basically said, there will be subsidies. There will be subsidies. This center will not operate without some type of subsidies. Now, we can debate where these subsidies are gonna come from. Are they gonna come from business? Are they gonna come from a foundation and private donations? Or there be some type of taxpayer subsidy? And she didn't really answer that, but basically there will be subsidies, especially if you have infants. You can look at losing about $1,000 per week per infant room. It's like, so she was talking some real money. So it was very interesting on the daycare. I think we are somewhat ahead of this game. We have had these daycare task forces in the past. Look for more of them in the future. And look for requests. It's gonna be an interesting, and I will leave it at that and pass over to.
Yeah, so the conference was really interesting, and the fall conference is where we're setting the also at the business meeting we're setting our policies for the upcoming year, so that when we go into the upcoming legislative session, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities really has direction from its members, which are over 100 municipalities across Greater Minnesota. Daryl, Councilmember Pettis, serves on the Transportation Committee. I serve on the Economic Development Committee and help develop those policies. And there weren't a ton of changes because we just anticipate this upcoming legislative session. Not a whole lot that's going to get done. I think just pushing again for LGA and bonding is going to be the primary focus areas for CGMC. Other than that, I was really interested in the Marketing Greater Minnesota Communities panel presentation. So we're a member of the Alliance, the Regional Economic Development Alliance. Huge portion of that budget goes into marketing. And if you think of our overall state budget, there's not a whole lot of marketing that goes into, or marketing dollars that go into economic development marketing, resident recruitment marketing. Now, there has been a transfer of funds from DEED, but it's still like who gets that money and where does it go is really interesting. So more to come. I hope to engage more with the executive director of Explore Minnesota with Rita so that we can talk about how we can bring more residents to this area, attract people to live in our greater Mankato area, which is a pretty great place to live. So I found that the most interesting out of all the panel presentations, plus the one on childcare as well. So.
Well, thanks to both of you for representing us at the CGMC conference.
Yes, I see that Rita is up there as well. So at our last Rita meeting, at the advisory committee meeting, I was voted as chair of the Regional Economic Development Alliance for the next 2 years. So normally it's a 1-year term. The advisory committee wanted to do 2-year terms, so there's some stability. So as chair for the next 2 years, also hold my seat on the Greater Mankato Growth Board as well.
Well, thanks so much.
I like meetings too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, other council members, Brad.
So the talk on childcare reminded me of something that's coming up, and I won't be here at the December meeting, so I thought I'd bring it up now. St. Peter Community Child Care Center, which I got involved with in 2013, they were basically the result of a child care task force that started. They got a loan through the EDA. The city worked with them first in the old hospital, then here at the community center, providing them space, giving them room to grow, sometimes a little too much room. But then also working with Gustavus. Times got really tight for a while. The city extended a lot of grace as far as the timeline for repayment of their back rent. 6 years ago now, a payment plan was set up to repay the whole thing, and if I'm correct, the final payment should be coming in this December. So it's something when we're talking about things that can happen. City collaborations, honestly, the City of Laverne talking about subsidies happening. While there wasn't so much a city subsidy, there was a lot of city assistance that took a long time. I mean, basically, I think they started in 2008, so it took 16 years for the city to get paid back. So these are kind of the investments that are needed, but it goes to show that sometimes, it takes a little patience. Sometimes I will say the center really was saved by a great board that was made up at the heart of when it was the worst was Nissa Fellas president, Casey West, Hannah Godbout, Laura Zender, myself, and Sarah Nielsen. And basically we dragged that center kicking and screaming from near bankruptcy into profitability. And like I said, it's one of those things with childcare centers, you can't expect it to be successful overnight. But I think it is a success we have to look at, and the city staff, honestly, the city staff should look at it as a success for what they did as far as helping to foster it and keep it going.
Thank you. Any other council reports? How about our city administrator?
Madam Mayor, I just want to recognize Pete. As some of you may be aware, Pete has been elected as the SIMPA president for the upcoming year. And so I want to really take a few moments and congratulate him on that. That is not just about Pete and the respect the other 17 communities have for Pete and his work, but it's a sign of how they feel about St. Peter and the direction that you've gone, not only within your electric utility, but other utilities, and how you've led the way on a number of issues, including some of the sustainability and reliability issues that you see with RP3 and others. SIMPA is an important partner for you. We buy all of our electricity from them, and so they have a major impact on a $13+ million budget in how we, as the mayor talked earlier with the Boy Scouts that were here, how reliable we are and the cost that we see and our impact on the environment. So I wanted to congratulate Pete and say, way to go, Pete. That's super cool. Again, not just for you, but for the community. And I don't know if Pete wants to say anything or anybody else has anything to say, but yeah. But congratulations, Pete. It is super great. In St. Peter, you've had 2 presidents now of SIMPA. And so that is fantastic. And again, you are so well regarded within that partnership. And we continue to have the opportunity through Pete to continue to influence the impact and that SIMPA has within our economic and environment into the future. So.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
Pete. Thank you for representing us. Before we move into our next item, which is moving into a closed session, would like to thank all the scouts who came tonight and stuck through a very long meeting. Thanks for joining us. We love to have people join us for our meetings. So, that said, next up is the adoption of a resolution calling for a closed session related to a real estate transaction.
Madam Mayor, members, I would anticipate that if you approve this resolution, you'll go into closed session. You will only come back into open session to adjourn the meeting. I have no planned action after this, at this meeting. So, Madam Mayor,
we'll-
that's the goal. We would,
We'll adjourn downstairs to the Traverse
That's
Vista
correct.
room. All right. The resolution calling for a closed session is on page 115. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We will move into closed session. It is 8:25 PM. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Respond to